exclusive launch of QM Beauty right here in London on Friday, 25th July 2025 at the Hilton London Kensington. A very good afternoon, good morning, and good evening from wherever you're watching us. Yes, it's another week, brand new week, and we are here to talk about industries that are currently booming. Yes, healthcare is booming, renewable energy is booming, AI, and of course, IT. But guess what? The fashion industry is really taking over, and in particular, in our continent of Africa, there are fashion designers that I have lined up to create, some of the most incredible designs that, have never been seen anywhere. And so the industry looks quite lucrative. It looks quite promising. It looks very inviting. But is there money in it? It's no wonder. Today, we are going to talk about fashion and money. And joining me is the one and only Terry Bailey, who eats, sleeps, feeds fashion. He is the founder of Global Fashion Management. Terry, welcome to the show.
Bonjour.
Bonjour.
I'm so pleased that it's following Bastille Day.
Yes.
And you're 100% right.
Yeah.
Professor Pauline Long is right. African fashion is really, really interesting. And they have basically an amount of creativity that you're not going to find elsewhere.
Right.
And I would like to add, the resilience. They are able to do incredible things. But like you said, my job, my mission in the world of fashion is to ensure that we build ultimately financially sustainable fashion brands.
That's right, sustainable fashion brands. Now, I see, all over the continent now. Nigeria's obviously taken over. Nigeria's taken over even music and film.
Absolutely.
But now they're taking over fashion. But then you look at other countries as well. I can see some great fashion designers in Ghana, Cameroon, Tanzania,
South Africa,
Kenya, Uganda. It's going viral.
Correct.
And it looks like, to me, there's a lot of money in it. What do you say to that? We're talking now fashion and money.
There's no doubt that you can build a profitable business.
Right.
However, lately I had to do some important fashion keynotes, whether when I was in Abuja, at the IDCA conference, whether at the African Fashion Week London, which I'm sure you know, and I'm sure our viewers know as well, also the Africa Advancement Forum. And I would like you to see the ABC of fashion as follows. However, please note that the ABC of fashion has to be seen as a three-leg stool, meaning if one letter is not working,
so the B can't be missing, and the C can't be missing, and the A can't be missing.
Exactly.
So all three are important. A, B, C.
Yes.
Which are?
A stands for awareness, brand awareness, marketing, showcasing. Absolutely, you need showcasing. The B stands for business mindset, business operation. And the C stands for creativity. And I can tell you, you're very good out of Africa, no doubt.
So the B, is there one that's more important than the other? The B is very important, isn't it? The business part of it.
That's a very tricky question. Of course, you need the creativity to be able to sustain the brand, but at the same time, there's going to be an end date which can be very early without knowing and understanding how you're going to set it up. Pricing and margin, leadership skills, how do you find the right strategy? What kind of sales distribution models you take?
Right.
All those are real challenging questions. I'm happy to go deeper into a case study because I spoke to a Nigerian designer, just 2 days ago. Right. I don't know whether it's premature, but we can discuss it now if you wish.
Right, right, amazing. But before we go into that, I just want to know your background in the fashion industry. Obviously, you're the founder of the Global Fashion Management. How long have you been in the industry, in the fashion industry, and your background? I mean, how did you get in?
I started over 25 years ago. First, I need also to make people understand that my father was a French diplomat. So,
Right.
I lived in 7 countries before the age of 18.
How many countries?
Well, 7, France, Netherlands, Switzerland, the US, Madagascar, Venezuela, Germany.
I was just like waiting to hear an African country in there, like
And Madagascar.
Madagascar. Oh, okay.
As
Why
well.
did I not count Madagascar as Africa? Well, it's a little country just outside, right outside.
It's
I was
yeah,
expecting
it's in and out.
Nigeria, Ghana, Kenya, but amazing.
And it's true. I had my first fashion experience when I was representing a hide and skin trader from Paris and allowing him to open basically the Japanese market.
Right.
And maybe let me tell you a little story because I couldn't go there. I was a student at that time,
Right.
so I couldn't go there and look professional and saying to clients, "I'm a student." So
Right.
I told the business owner, "Can I take an official position in the business?" He said, "What do you like to be?" I said, "Export manager." Okay. It was a small trading company.
Right.
But thanks to that, I was able to meet Kenzo. I was able to meet other big brands.
Amazing.
And that was really my first venture in the fashion world. But then, after coming back from 2 other experiences in Southeast Asia, basically a company in France told me, "Thierry, can you basically run our UK operation?" And from there, I was able to basically work with a lot of famous fashion brands you're going to know, whether Calvin Klein, Donna Karan, Kenzo, Moschino, Mona Lisa, Smalto, Sergio Rossi, Versace, and of course, hundreds of SMEs.
So basically, you worked with the high-end fashion.
And
Luxury.
and basically startups, mono
Yeah,
brands,
yeah,
because today we need to support all
Startups,
those young,
yeah.
absolutely. Because again, it's not just about making money; it's about creating jobs.
That's
It's-
right.
It's creating revenues for the country.
And
It's
that's
also-
where the government needs to come in some sort of
Absolutely.
collaborations.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
Correct.
And as we see Africa now, of course, the fashion industry is rising. I mean, what would you advise, various African governments? How can they, get involved to create jobs, through fashion?
I think they start seeing it 100% as a creative economy. So they realize
Right.
that there is a whole billion-dollar business behind it. And the question is, how can they capture, as a government, that business? What is really important to say is that we've described what was the ABC of fashion.
Right.
Today, unfortunately, governments, association, federation, institution are investing in the A, helping build brand awareness, showcasing. The question is that's not good enough.
That's not good enough. Yeah.
It doesn't allow the brand to sustain. So
The industry is huge. But
It's
why
huge.
do you think, especially as African governments, why are they taking too long to capitalize and realize that this is an industry that could actually have the unemployment rate in the youth, especially in the continent, because it's quite high? What is the strategy that maybe brands, private brands, what is the strategy that they can use to join hands together with the government, or in fact to convince the government that their creative economy can put food on tables?
I think we might have been brainwashed by looking at what the others are doing.
Okay.
Unfortunately,
The others, as
meaning
in-
the other regions, the other continents.
Okay.
Meaning every
As in
country.
UK, EU, yeah.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
You can go on all continents. They will all have that same strategy,
Right.
pushing, showcasing.
Yeah.
But again, if you don't invest and support the brand, the designer, to be able to market themselves better, sell better, you end up ultimately bringing their brand name forward for 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, and after that, nothing happens. So what the government needs to do is to ultimately, create the structure, the policies, potentially helping on the funding side, And then I would say with the rest of the ecosystem, because of course the fashion ecosystem is rich. I mean, and we'll be able maybe to discuss it. And ultimately, the same way I'm going to be a bridge between, you know, where the brand is today and where they want to be tomorrow, the government has to be also that kind of bridge. But again, not replicating the mistakes that everybody have been doing for 10, 20, 30 years.
Right.
Which is not producing the results we want in terms of job creation and ultimately revenue generation and foreign currency. Because most of your market down the road will be at export, meaning bringing back in Africa dollars, euro, yen, pounds.
But also maybe the government, maybe we could get the government involved through, you know, textile industry, because a lot of African countries had textile industry. Like these were dating 30 years ago. It was there, but you know, I know Sierra Leone is trying to revive. Nigeria is trying to revive. Kenya is trying to revive. You know, there was a time where we were producing and manufacturing our own fabric. Yes. But of course now everything is coming from China. And essentially, again, we're going back to, you know, there's no job creations through it. So I think maybe, what do you think? Reviving the textile industry, and then maybe we want to start having that conversation with governments and say, okay, we've revived the industry, then there has to be a structure, maybe a ministry of, you know, I know a lot of countries group it together, like Ministry of Creative, you know, Economy or whatever. But if you're going to bang it all together, entertainment, fashion, film, if you're going to put them all together under one ministry, you find that some of them lose. Absolutely. Like now, I think that fashion is not getting that, what would I say, the attention that it needs to get. You can see that designers are trying their best, you know, award ceremonies, you can see that they're designing all of this. Absolutely. But that's where it ends. After that, there's no production. They're waiting for the next award ceremony.
Absolutely.
It's just not sustainable. It's just not sustainable.
No, you're right. I would like to open new doors as well. Is trying to say the value creation is going to be in the creativity that the designer brings.
Right.
And to some extent, the manufacturing at first could be done abroad, potentially. On the other hand, you want to maximize revenue generation and job creation locally, domestically, so, or on the continent. It's true that today, you know, I discovered a lot of African brands, definitely thanks to Queen Ronke, you know, who's been launching African Fashion Week.
She's doing an amazing job.
Absolutely.
She's absolutely incredible.
She's having her 15th year this year in August in London.
Yes.
And she's got, you know, the Adira Odua fabric. And again, those are basically initiatives that we need to push. And I agree with you.
Produced in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And she was mentioning a very frightening number where I think there were only 4 manufacturers, textile manufacturers in Nigeria, and I think she mentioned 200 in the past. So
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's not just Nigeria. Generally, a lot of the African countries, we've got to a point where if that industry is revived, it will change the whole dynamics. It will change a lot. And when I say a lot, it will be right from education in terms of, you know, that industry. Right. The textile and fashion industry. You'll find that more and more young people will go into institutions or colleges to learn about fashion design. You know, you'll find that there will be factories, so from learning, there will be a place where they can have a placement, you know. And also, it will just mean that you have a manufacturer next door, you know, and you can open a mall, you can open your boutique, do you know what I mean? So there's sustainability and continuity. Do you know what I mean? You don't just wait for BEFTA awards designed for a couple of celebrities, then wait again the next year, then wait again the following year. It's what are we doing in between? What are we producing in between? And so these are conversations that even investors would be interested in hearing, because an investor needs to be convinced. How
Correct.
are they going to get their return, their ROI? How is it going to trickle back in? So I think that it's time for, that Africans have this conversation about fashion, seriously, fashion and money.
Look, the industry exists. Your creativity has sky's the limit. There's no doubt about it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned whether it's Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa, Morocco, Egypt. You've got huge talents. So it would be silly not to take advantage of it. On top of it, out of Africa, the designers are talented enough to focus not only on ethnic wear, but also on Western styles.
Luxury, high end.
As well.
Mm-hmm.
So it means that your customer is basically around the world.
Anybody
In Europe,
yes.
in the US, can buy that product.
Mm-hmm.
So your potential is huge. It's
It's-
not
it's-
just the
it's
diaspora
huge.
in or outside Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So this is where, governments need to understand the power that you will have in the fashion world
Mm-hmm.
by establishing the right foundations and definitely supporting the designers, through that element of business. They need to understand how to do their margins, how to do a business plan. Once again, whether they do it on their own, that's why, today I'm launching a program to really help them and support them throughout the whole year and possibly more.
Okay.
But they need to,
what program is this?
it's basically, I call it the CHIC program. It stands CHIC, C-H-I-C, like in French.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's about collaborative. It's about holistic. You need to have a 360 holistic approach to your business.
Right.
Otherwise, there's no sustainability, financially sustainability. It's about innovation, not just pure innovation, but just how do I make a better decision? How can I improve, the management with my team? Connecting with a sales agent, connecting with buyers, department stores, or independent boutiques. And the last C is about commerce. It's about, how do I generate money? How do I make it profitable? I want the designers to be able to be in a situation, I want brands to be in a situation where every week, every month, when they have a decision making to make, they can go to the expert
Right.
and see it solved. Ultimately, it's about improving decision making.
And obviously, when we talk about, the fashion and producing and creating, we need investors on the table. Are there investors at the moment that are confident to put their money in the fashion, the small fashion businesses? Do you know?
They will be open. They need to have the reassurance that there's a structure on the other side. Because on occasion, what can worry an investor is that the business owner is 99.99% creative. And they're going to be interested in, when am I going to make a return on investment? Whether it's going to be 3, 5, 7, 10 years. So we need to give them that confidence. So again, maybe in this industry, to say to the investor, who's going to be mentoring on the business side? The designer, the brand, so that there are no irrational decisions being made,
Right.
so that the money can be invested in a proper way. Otherwise, yes, the risk for the investor will exist. When I was in Abuja, I met somebody who told me, you've got to teach me how to make the right investments.
Right.
Because he made, unfortunately, the wrong decisions in the past. But that can be corrected.
So, do you see the African fashion taking off from where it is now? I mean, do you see catching up with the Western, sort of not Western brands, not in terms of quality, well, in terms of quality as well, but in terms of volumes of, what they are producing and the revenue that's coming in? Because as we see now, the African designers are, they are very creative.
Super
But
creative.
do you see them making progress and making real money in the next few years? Do you, or is there something that they need to do, like whether it's something sudden or whatever, is there something they need to do to remove them from where they are right now, where really and truly they're not making money?
I was speaking with a designer I met in Abuja, and 15 years running the business, and telling me, Thierry, whether it's myself or other designers I know, we're not making money. Exactly what you said. I'm sure it breaks your heart.
It's very that's a very honest designer, because a lot of them online, the way they expose and the way they showcase from the outside, you think they're swimming in money, they're making a lot of money, but they're not really being honest and telling the young people that want to join the industry that there's no money here. There is no money. We're struggling. So for that designer to actually open up to you and tell you 15 years and she's not making money, but still holding on.
One challenge he had was to let go. When he was not around, he didn't trust enough his team to do it. But he didn't know how to ultimately create the structure, the processes, the systems, to basically train his staff to a higher level where...
So even in his absence, the company can still run without him?
Absolutely. Otherwise, if what the right hand and left hand are doing are different, the buyer, the consumer is going to see it, and they're not going to they're not going to buy it a second time. So, we need to make sure we create that foundation as solid as possible. Because we talked about governments, I would like to stress also to governments the need to work on the back office, on the logistics and payment side. Because you still have two regions, countries in the world, let's call them the US on the one hand and Europe on the other, where the buyers are not going to be willing to be, I would say, going through complications in the buying process. Meaning they don't want to be having the brands to ship the goods, what we call, free on board, X works. Meaning the VAT, the duty, the custom clearance will be left to the consumer or to the buyer. So this is where investors, this is where governments, real partnerships at logistic level with logistics people, at payment level, can really facilitate and turbo boost sales in those foreign countries. And so we need to, this is where, again, I need to stress the need to look at the opportunities and have a 360 business approach. Because if we forget that, we're potentially limiting the opportunity for growth internationally. And because the creativity is there, I think we're missing the opportunity if we delay it.
Yeah, the creativity is definitely there. It's massive, it's enormous. And hence also what I think is maybe the African designers need to be bold enough now to collaborate with the Western designers. Ask for that collaboration, seek it, ask to collaborate with Louis Vuitton, ask to collaborate with, Gucci, ask to collaborate with the big brands. They can only say no or yes.
Correct. Correct.
But looking at what, these designers are putting out there, I don't see why all the big brands should say no.
That
I don't see why they should say no.
Some brands have taken African influence designs
and
to incorporate them in their collection.
Yeah, and then they always say it's African inspired. But sometimes I think, why don't you just go to Africa, go to one of the countries, 2, 3, 4, Malawi, whatever you want to go, Zimbabwe, Zambia, take some of the designers, collaborate with them, instead of using the African fabric and doing some of their designs and then recreating some of their designs, and then you're going to sell it at Harrods, and then you're going to say it's African inspired. That, to me, doesn't sound right, Terry. I mean, let's be honest.
No, those are reasons why, I feel a little bit sad, because we've got to be able to help them much more effectively. And that's why we have to review the old way of working,
Right.
dump it, and find a new way of working. So I'm here, to make sure we can sit down with governments, association, federations, and ultimately groups of designers and brands to make sure that, we change that dynamic, and then we make it succeed.
Right.
They have been given a lot of opportunities for showcasing. Now let's focus again on the B. Adebayo Jones, a Nigerian designer.
Of course, a
He's
very prominent
got
Nigerian designer.
Great talent. I'm
Yes.
sure you might have
Huge.
seen.
I think I have actually worn Adebayo Jones before. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Yes.
And so he told me, Thierry, fashion is not just about art. It's
Yeah.
not about entertainment. It's a
Yeah.
business. So he's right. If we're not helping people make money, then they won't be able to design the next season's collection.
Right.
And you need to understand that, designers invest their personal savings, friends and family money. And on occasion, it can disappear between 6 months to 2 years, So the question is, how can we help them secure a more profitable business for themselves? Because their community, their
And
tribe.
sustainable. That's
Yeah.
sustainable as well. Because the passion is there. So maybe
Yes.
the business side is not there. Do you think they should employ, a completely different office to deal with the business side? Because they need to just create. It's like being an artist.
Correct.
You don't want to be managing the money and all of that. You just want to go into the studio to create the music, Then you have a manager on the side that's dealing with all the logistics and how much money is coming in. Some artists don't even know how much is coming in and how much is going out. That's none of their
Absolutely.
business. They're just creating the music. They're making the music. So maybe the fashion industry, African fashion industry, can emulate this, where they are just creating the designs. Then there is a department that's just dealing with the money, because money has to come in.
It has to come in.
Money has to come in.
Alors, depending on, the structure you're going to create. My business mindset will say, look, I'm happy with that solution, but I'm never going to try to make you become a better expert in sales and marketing and HR and finance and accounting.
That's it.
But I will make sure that you understand how you can ask better questions
That's right.
and challenge the other side, or the people on the other side of the table, and make sure you understand whether they're telling you maybe a lie or the truth. Whether they're going to try to take advantage of you or not. That, on the other hand, is
Actually,
key.
let's pose on that. Maybe that's another fear. That maybe they'll be taken advantage of.
Yes.
I have had one or two designers say that, so they're holding on to what they have because there's a fear of somebody might steal their designs and run away with it, whoever they're collaborating with. That's a thing, right?
No, it is a
Because
thing.
you can't really steal someone's design, isn't it? You can just be inspired. Should a designer get angry if somebody got inspired and maybe altered part of the sleeve, didn't put it all the same, but just did a little bit of an alteration? Should someone get angry because of that?
I would say you can try to protect your designs, but this is where maybe you want to make sure that you have some kind of a design and data associated with it. But the good thing about social media today, Pauline, is that today through social media you can start putting pressure on the people who might start to copy you. And sometimes big chain stores can be, on occasion, doing that kind of work. Some designers, told me that people do that. So you want to make sure that you have an easy way to potentially put pressure on the big people who
Because
are
you
going to
can't
take
really
away
you
their
can't really
designs.
patent, your design. You can't copyright it, can you?
Christian Louboutin did manage to still have his red soles.
The road soap, yeah.
Absolutely. So you can still have something very unique that you want to be able to protect. But beyond that, remember that only 20% of people are going to be consistent and disciplined in putting the hard work. So and when I say 20, sometimes just 1%.
Yeah.
So should you fear the fact that somebody's going to try to copy you? To some extent, Rolex, who knows, you might try to do a fake Rolex. It's a proof that you are successful, that you have creativity. If people are copying you, it means you're good. So continue moving forward. Push the pin forward. Of course, try to push your name as fast as you can. There's no doubt about
Yeah,
that.
so usually is it with fashion designers, what do you think is the right way of pushing their brand? Is it pushing them as the brand owner or actually their designs first? I mean, which one goes fast?
I mean, today we have developed, the personal brand. And therefore there's going to be a value in them doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I like what Simon Sinek mentioned about, why do you do what you do? So why are you motivated today in doing the design you do? And the more because you will have competition. They may not use the same techniques.
Yes.
You may not have the same fabric, and maybe coming from artisanship versus maybe not. But why are you doing it? And that consumer could also like very much and purchase your goods, your design, because of the why, the big why. So for me, I would say, yes, build your brand also through your personal brand. Definitely. I would recommend that.
So if there was a designer right now watching, a designer that's about to give up, because, the industry is not easy. If there was one that's about to give up, what are the three things, three things that you can share with that designer that might just, at the end of the third point, the designer might just decide, you know what, I'm sticking it. I'm staying. What are the 3 points? Only 3 that the designer can take away.
Okay. Well, the first one is your competition is not going to be as committed, focused, disciplined, and consistent. So if you are able to keep that element of consistency and discipline in your work, you will succeed. You will ultimately progress, because your job as a designer is also to progress every day, be better every day. The second thing, which is key, is understanding that ultimately you need that you need that business mindset as soon as you start, because every mistake
You
can cost
need to start calculating the profits and losses.
Absolutely.
And,
Yeah. Because again, what most designers, when they start, forget to do is to even think about selling.
What do you mean? Wait, you mean they create the designs and just leave it on the shelf, or just hang it somewhere?
I mean that you have little or no clarity on who the customer is reading. Meaning, one top tip they need to understand is, who's my competition? What kind of brands?
Who are you designing for?
Exactly.
Okay.
But precisely. Meaning, Pauline, what other brands would you buy? Because just saying that the lady or the man travels, is married, has 2 kids, doesn't tell you precisely where do I find those customers, those trade buyers. So that element of logic has to be embedded in, among other things, in the business component of your business. Otherwise, you're not going to grow, you're not going to make money, and you're not going to be sustainable. So that is key.
But that brings us back to what I was saying earlier about, okay, a designer might just want to be the creator, doesn't want to deal with the business side of the design.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, this is why within the Chic program that I created, I make sure that they don't need to know everything about sales, marketing, HR, production, etc. They just need to understand, what question am I going to ask the production manager or the head of production? What am I going to ask to the head of HR, to the head of sales and marketing? Because otherwise people might just sell you the shiny object. And I can promise you the shiny object will not deliver the results you want.
Yeah.
And that happens too often. And today I have clients who tell me, Thierry, I received too many offers, I've got too many proposals, and they're lost.
Yeah.
The Nigerian designer told me, Thierry, I don't know where to start. So it is difficult for them. So they just need a couple of advice. It can take, honestly, 5 minutes. Afterwards, if you need to explain it deeper, you need maybe an hour.
Yeah.
But, the high-level ideas can be expressed very quickly.
Right.
The third element is to say, look, you need to value your product at the right level. Because very often when
you say value, what do you mean?
Meaning understanding that apart from margin, is your pricing right? Because on occasion, especially, I've been also dealing with countries like, Malaysia, Indonesia, where you have some artisan using batik. And because, let's say, they want to be paid $10 an hour, and it takes them 2 hours, they want to sell it for 20 pounds or $20. The reality is they forget to say, yeah, but Professor Pauline Long in London, how much would she pay for it? And sometimes the number is not 20 or 25 or 30. It can be 50, it can be 100. So you need to understand, what is the price of my product at retail in the Western world? Because now you're going to see how much margin, how much more money you can make.
Right.
And governments as well.
Yeah.
Down the road.
Value is very, very important.
Absolutely.
Not underpriced and not overpriced.
Correct. Correct. Because I would say easily a third of the files we receive at Global Fashion Management are going to be wrong when it comes to pricing and margin.
Right.
And that's at
right.
least.
So what would you do? You help them restructure it again?
I turn every stone in the business.
Yeah.
I have no choice. Because otherwise, they're going to make a mistake. And that mistake is going to cost them a lot of money. If you go to a trade show with the wrong margins for the boutiques you're going to try to sell to, you will lose $5,000 to $10,000, because that's the cost of just a stand at a major trade show.
Right.
So who can afford to basically pick up 0 orders? Nobody.
Wow.
So
I think a lot of African designers should really take up your course. Okay. So what's the procedure?
on the course, they can just connect with us.
Yeah.
But you know what? You told me that you expect also this interview to be the opportunity for designers to call.
Absolutely, yes.
Can I offer them something?
Yes, of course. Let's see.
Why don't we offer everybody who's going to leave a text on the WhatsApp of the program, or potentially ask a question. I'll
Hello?
invite you all.
Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Good evening. Please, can you say something? You are sharing your ears.
Oh, I don't think that's our call. Okay, some people have actually left a message. Let me see. Okay. Oh, okay. Okay, we'll come back to that. You know, somebody's talking about collaborations and partnerships. You know, how do they go about their collaborations and partnerships?
Hello. First, I would say partnerships, collaborations are essential.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in fashion, there's roughly different sales distribution models that you can choose from.
Mm-hmm.
Wholesale, retail, physical retail,
Yeah.
online.
Mm-hmm.
Out of Africa, sometimes there's a lot of people doing bespoke, and there could be some side business models, but those are the main 4 key ones. When we talk about partnerships, I would like to make sure that the designers also ask the question in relation to which business model. Why? Because again, you're going to save your time, you're going to save the other people's time who are going to listen.
Mm-hmm.
Can I tell you something which
Go ahead.
is a major mistake?
Yes.
Whether your name is Tony Elimiru, whether your name is Richard Branson,
Oh,
Thierry Ben,
Dangote.
or Professor Pauline Long,
Yes.
we only have 24 hours a day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Can I urge you all
Mm-hmm.
to basically respect the time of people? If you do just that, I can promise you, you will be able to get much more
Time.
for free. Yeah.
You mean time?
Value
Are you-
people's time.
Are you talking about African time? As we're always latecomers, or what are you talking about?
I don't know. I'm talking
Are
every
you
design.
talking generally, or are you talking, you know, Africans, you know, we're known for being late. That's the truth.
No.
You've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
I'm
so
talking.
you're telling us off, basically.
No,
in terms
I'm
of time?
talking about every designer on the planet because I've dealt with
Yeah.
many countries. And
Oh, so
over-
not just South Africans.
Oh, no.
They're,
Oh,
they're
no,
also
the-
late as well. They're not
No,
time.
no, it's not about being late.
Yeah.
No, it's about valuing
Someone's
every
time, yes.
minute
Mhm.
of somebody else's time.
That's
An
right.
investor, if he makes 10 million or 100 million a year,
Mhm.
he's not going to give you 10 minutes to discuss nothing that's going to pertain to the questions he has or she has.
Mm.
So I want to make sure that when you address a question potentially to an expert, you make sure that you are very precise.
Mhm.
Because failure to do that, the person's going to have and ask you a couple of questions,
Right.
which he or she may not be willing to do.
Mhm.
And then they're going to think, well, he doesn't really or she doesn't really understand fashion, i.e., I'm not interested, Pauline. No, it's not that. You are wasting their time.
Mhm.
Why have people asked me called me Dr. Fashion is because they realize I need to ask questions. I need to do some tests to really understand where are the opportunities, how can I improve your health on the one hand,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
how can I also potentially give you a prescription
Mhm.
that's going to help you long term.
Yes.
So respect people's time, be super focused. So collaboration and partnership. Look, you said it very well, Pauline, before, is don't be afraid to first knock at the door of a bigger brand. If Louis Vuitton wants to go deep into the hip hop scene or
Right.
something like that,
Mm.
they don't necessarily have the legitimacy in it.
No, they don't.
So-
They'll be
so-
shy as well. They'll be like, I think that's what we don't realize, that they might also be shy to approach us.
Possibly,
Because
absolutely.
they don't want to be accused of,
Absolutely.
trying to take over. Do you know what I
Correct.
mean? So how do we encourage the African fashion designers in particular? How do we encourage them to come out of that shell and go and knock on those big doors?
Have a big why. Understand where you're going to be able to make their heart resonate.
Have a big why.
Why? Yes.
Mhm.
Why do you do it? Or you're going to tell me, but Thierry, why do you do it? That's a good question.
Yeah.
My father was a diplomat, but he was able to work in an embassy
Yes.
or work in the consulate.
Yes.
And I could see that he was frustrated when working in the embassy, having to basically take the orders of people, which
Yeah.
didn't make sense.
Yes.
And he was coming happier at home when working at the consulate, helping French people who
Yeah.
are struggling.
Mhm.
And, I feel my mission is the same. On top of it, there's another thing, which I think my
Yeah.
parents did it on purpose,
Yeah.
is that Robin Hood,
Yeah.
and he's been supporting
Mhm.
people
Yes.
in a difficult situation.
Yes.
Robin Hood has a cousin in France,
Right.
and his name is Thierry Lafronde. And I know that my parents were watching Thierry Lafronde as a TV series
Right.
at the time I was born.
Mhm.
And I'm just thinking, Thierry isn't the reason why you have to help them. You are talented.
Yeah.
You deserve it. Okay?
Mhm.
And the question is, we're not always giving you the understanding of what needs to be done
Mhm.
in a timely manner.
Right.
And if you make one mistake, it can honestly cost you $1,000, $10,000 easily.
Mhm.
So, approach those bigger brands. Make sure that you have the reason why them. This is why you need to understand your positioning. You need to understand what they do, what they believe in, which will resonate with you, and the reverse being true as well.
Mhm.
Be pro. Use their time wisely. Absolutely. But
And-
work on partnerships.
Yeah, and also these big brands, they have a social impact side.
Correct.
So if they know that the designer in Africa wants to collaborate, but then in the process creating huge job opportunities, that's social impact.
Correct.
That's the big designer actually giving back.
Correct.
So I'm encouraged by what I see now in terms of fashion, of the African fashion. But where do you think we're going to be in the next 5 years? Do you think we would have progressed and come off our shells and become a leader in the fashion industry, and compete with the global scene?
All my remarks
Mhm.
is worldwide, meaning I don't see a country doing a better job with their young designers and startup companies. So my question is, why wouldn't Africa be able to be the leader?
Mhm.
And you can create a hub in one or several countries in Africa just to make sure to support it in a maybe more cost-effective manner with maybe, ultimately costs to be spread across different countries. So for me, in 5 years, if they take those, I'm going to say it bold steps, but they're just logical to produce results. I would like them to break my logic and say, Thierry, it's not going to work. I would love you to tell me why when I'm going to suggest whatever I'm going to suggest. I just want to make sure that we go maybe a little bit deeper on the partnership element.
Right.
The partnership element can be envisioned in different ways. Meaning, suppose you only do bags. You might be still interested to have a scarf designer approaching you, or an apparel designer. If you're just doing apparel, you might appreciate somebody approaching you for footwear. So try to see it maybe within your own product category, or on the opposite, through an addition of a new product category for the brand. Consider it also as, at a price level, as something more premium or something actually more commercial.
Right. Value and finest, you know how
Yes.
Taste does it, like have different tiers, yeah.
Absolutely. I've been working with a brand 15 years in the business. It's only after 15 years that he realized, Thierry, I only have a commercial price point. I don't have a premium price point. I don't have an entry level price point.
Right. Yeah.
So those are sometimes basic logical steps that one
That's
can
quite
take.
important. That's
and
key.
we forget. Absolutely. So partnership, please map it out. Be super creative and open. And you're going to realize that you're going to have reasons why you should knock at their door and
Right.
create those partnerships.
But also, to have these partnerships, as you say, you need to have a structure. So do you recommend that maybe some of these designers need to probably, get some sort of structure by attending some courses or going to school or institutions or, earning certificates, I mean, because I'm sure most of them, some of the designers I know, they're just doing it as a hobby, as a passion. That's how it started. But do they have to legitimize it by going through maybe a university or college or some institution to advance? Do you think that will help them with the business side of fashion?
It's a very good question. I would say I've done a business school in France, so I can see the value of it. But at the same time, there are things maybe you're not going to learn going through a business degree. I had basically a designer having done a 1-year fashion management course in London, and she approached me and said, Thierry, can you help me on logistics and payments? I thought, well, have you been taught anything on that? No. So basically, the 1 year didn't actually discuss some key pillars of building a profitable brand, meaning shipping goods internationally, getting paid. How do you get paid? And I've spent enough time on that. So I would say this is why today the 1 year program, the Chic program, is about making sure that I keep them for 1 year, because I want them to make sure that they have the expert by their side at any time. And if we need to be available on a Sunday, we'll be available on a Sunday. But otherwise, I want to make sure you understand you're having a big, difficult decision to make. We don't want you to lose time. We don't want you to lose money. Address it with somebody else. Have a fresh perspective. So for me, having some kind of a sounding board, business mentor, business coach, I don't care the word you're going to use, but who's challenging you? Are you accountable to somebody? That's what I would like to see. And then I can tell you, they will avoid. Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Very often we're excited about somebody who's going to share their success path.
Right.
Which is really important, because on occasion you need to hear that, inspirational story to move forward.
You need to hear how the downfall and the pitfalls and
Yeah,
how
that's
they
it.
rose back up and from the bottom to the middle to the top. You need to hear every angle of their success.
Correct. Except that what Professor Pauline Long mentions is whether you have the time to sit several times in a row and for maybe several hours with the expert or the person who has gone through that. Very often, you only have maybe 1 hour or 10 minutes. If you're able to have an expert who's going to give you 80% of the mistakes you're going to make, but that's it, you avoid most of the mistakes you're going to make.
But can you get that person in this,
But that's
in
our
this
job.
business,
That's
business world that we're at now? Not everybody's willing to spill the beans. Like, not everybody's willing to lay out and say, okay, this is where I went wrong. This is where I went wrong. I went wrong here. I don't go here. You know, it's almost like most people just want to show that glitter and the glamour,
Absolutely.
but not, the dark side, the days when you didn't even want to wake up to create, or the losses that you've gone through. You know what I mean? So it's quite an interesting industry, I must say, the fashion industry, because I don't know, personally, I don't know any fashion designer that's their 9 to 5, that's what they're feeding from. They always have to have an extra job on the side, a main job on the side. Then fashion is just the tiny job, but yet they're very creative and they're very passionate.
Correct.
Why can't it be the other way around? That fashion be their 9 to 5, and then something else be what they're doing on the side.
You mentioned it very rightly. This is why my job is easier, because I don't mention the name of the designer or the brand,
Yes,
but I have the full story
you have
in the world
all.
at every price point,
Yes.
at every company size, and being able to tell you, look, at 80%, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
One day, a client told me, Thierry, you care more about my business than I do. And it was really nice. I said, why do you say that?
Yeah.
Thierry, you can see the green flag where I see a red flag. You see the red flag where I see a green flag. And I'm happy to demonstrate it. Again, if you have an audience who wants to jump on a Zoom call with me,
Yes.
and I answer their question, I would say I'm super happy that we offer that to your audience. And
Absolutely.
I wouldn't like them to come here today,
Yes.
use your valuable time, because you could have done something else. So I want to make sure that we can give them something extra.
Yeah.
If you.
Yeah. It's almost like a mentorship
Correct.
into the business, the new ones that want to
Correct.
that want to get into the fashion industry,
Correct.
and the ones who are already there but they want to leverage.
Correct.
The fashion industry is one of the most competitive industries in the world, and I know that earlier you mentioned that they shouldn't look at who their competition is. You need to focus on you and be disciplined. But how is that possible when the fashion industry is probably the most saturated? How do you, as a designer, decide, I'm not going to worry about anybody else. Let me just focus on this.
I would say the knowledge of your competition and
Yeah.
the brands that you sit alongside is for identifying exactly who your customer is.
Right.
Afterwards, I'm not here for you to know your competition, to try to imitate them. You have to have your own DNA and move forward accordingly. But understanding who is your customer precisely, and ultimately, where can I pitch my message and my goods to him or her? And therefore, the question is, okay, what else do they buy? Because then you can make that alignment much more easily and be right. Now, is it possible for you to shine? Yes, because the others are not. Again, the others are not going to be
That's
consistent.
interesting. Yeah.
The others are
The
not
others are
go-
not shining.
are not going to be consistent.
Yeah. So just worry about yourself.
Worry about yourself, but please learn every day. I tell clients, fashion success is no more about what you know, it's about what you don't know. Learn, continue learning. And again, have a more creative, critical thinking in your business. Try to ask quality questions. That is only a learning of a process. If you learn the process, you will ask better questions.
Right.
Every single time, from students to established, people.
Yeah.
When you start planting the right question, guess what? They give you the right answer. So we know the answers inside. We know the answers. The question there is a blog. That's why I have to invest in the program on your mindset. I have to invest on leadership skills. Because if I don't do that, you're not going to really shine as much as you could.
So if we were to sum up, what message would you send to African designers now?
Well, you can be successful. I want to make sure that we create a strong ecosystem, because of course you need the manufacturers or the people who are going to produce your samples. And then you could manufacture anywhere you want. You want, of course, the governments and other agencies who are going to help you and support you, because you need maybe roads, you may need electricity and those kind of things. But you also need all the other stakeholders, whether a photographer, a TV, radio, social media, digital marketing, etc. So we need to build that ecosystem based on what is required around you. And I really want you to focus on having accountability. Yes, you could do it to yourself, but the question is, how can you make sure that you have that business mindset inside the business?
Yes.
So are you doing it on your own, or do you take an expert from the outside who's supporting you?
Absolutely. I mean, the way you've summed it up is almost like, they shouldn't feel like the fashion industry is a lonely industry. You don't have to be there by yourself trying to do everything and try to, you know what I mean? You need to get the government involved, get private sectors involved, get investors involved. It's very key. And no wonder today we were talking about fashion and money. Very, very, very important.
You mentioned...
So we're running out of time.
Use AI
yes.
to facilitate your content and your delivery of many business
and we'll be coming
answers.
back, to talk about AI actually. So in our next session. So thank you very much, Thierry. And thank you for coming. So until next time, thank you for joining us, and I hope you'll be successful in your fashion business. Goodbye.
Merci. Goodbye.
Welcome to An Audience with Queen May Yul Edochie. Dinner and gala night, an exclusive launch of QM Beauty, right here in London on Friday, 25th July 2025 at the Hilton, London, Kensington.